Anna, is an informal property settlement with my ex binding?
No. So even if you put it in writing and sign it, it's not a binding agreement and it is not binding. The only way that you can make a binding agreement with your ex in relation to a property settlement is using a financial agreement that is strictly governed by the Family Law Act. So there's sections in the Family Law Act that set out how you make an agreement for a property division binding, and those sections have to be very strictly adhered to in terms of the content of the document, what it deals with, how it's signed, and also each party requires a certificate of independent legal advice from their own lawyer. You can't have the same lawyer doing it. You've got to each have an independent lawyer, and each of those lawyers needs to give a certificate that they've advised you about the pros and cons of the agreement before you've entered into it. So it is a really, often consent orders can be easier to do, even through a lawyer. But yes, certainly an informal property settlement, emails or any sort of documents, or any sort of verbal agreement, not binding. However, if you did end up in a dispute later on about what should be the property division, then any sort of agreement or terms you'd reached in the past might be used in terms of evidence as to what each of you considered to be a fair outcome.
Yeah, but and I suppose with that evidence there has to be caution as to where that evidence came about. So if you were doing a mediation, for example, and agreements were reached there, then you can't confidential discuss that later. Yep. So yeah, I think there's always, and also times change, so there can be this mutual intention to do everything properly, and we'll handshakes will be fine, like anything.
Yeah, that's right. And then someone wins lotto, exactly. And then it's no, that wasn't binding.
Or partners or whatever it is.
Exactly. So always best to see a lawyer at the time of separation and get things done properly.
Yeah.